Hey guys, how's it going? Srey here. So today I want to talk about Zarya. Zarya is the second hero from Overwatch, the first being Tracer, and Zarya is a weird hero. She's not a tank, she's not a DPS, and she's not a support, but she is a mix of all three. Perhaps the first real mix of all three that we have in the game. So she doesn't really have any CC on her own, but she has a lot of shield. She has her personal barrier and her shield ally. And she does a lot of damage with her basic attacks and with her particle grenade. So Zarya can fit in any comp, but she excels in comps that she's able to accentuate some kind of hyper carry on her team. And what I mean by that is she's really good with Vala, she's good with Illidan, she's good with someone like Butcher, although I don't think Butcher is that strong. She's good with any kind of hero that is really good if they have the help of their team. And you don't always need to rely on your team as Zarya. In fact, she does a ton of damage on her own, but that's the kind of comp that you want to run her in. Now, Zarya used to be somewhat easy to deal with. She used to be basically a short-ranged hero, but with the recent changes, which we'll cover in a minute, she has a lot of poke, and she also does a lot of damage at short range. So you can't really poke her out, and you can't really fight her at close range. So what do you do? Well, that's what we're going to cover today. So I want to talk about uh, Zarya's abilities first, and first we'll go over her auto attacks, or her basic attacks. And Zarya, I think, is the only hero in the game to share the same kind of auto attack system that Tychus has, and that is she attacks 4 times per second, which is the same as Tychus. And in addition to that, her attacks also pierce. So by standing these ogres, you can hit both of them at the same time. Now, that's obviously very strong because of the amount of AoE damage you can do, but the attack speed is also a detriment. So generally, it's better to have a slower attack speed because you can then stutter step, which is a common general strategy on any hero you play, but it's especially true on heroes like Vala or Mirrodin, but you wouldn't really use stutter stepping as much on a hero like Illidan who attacks very quickly, and that's the same that's true on Zarya. Now, if I just do kind of basic stutter stepping here, you can see it's not too quick, but if I go really fast, you can get some faster stutter stepping going on here, but you'll never equate to the damage that she does if you just stand still. So basically, the way you want to use Zarya for her auto attacks is you basically just stand still and you're a turret. And if the allies move, then you just attack them as they move. She's not very good at chasing. You want to get into the fight and stand there and then just auto attack. And that's how you use her auto attacks to full effectiveness. Zarya is also very, very good at sieging structures. And this is because of her shields and the low cooldowns they produce and her really, really high sustained damage. Um, so and that's mostly with her auto attacks, but her Q, particle cannon or particle grenade, sorry, also does a lot of damage, but not as much to structures, but it's very good wave clear. So Zarya's passive is energy. So each point of damage that you gain, each point of energy that you gain increases your damage output by 2%. So if you have 100 energy, you do 3 times as much damage. That is a lot of damage and a big increase. So you can see that managing your energy is very important to playing Zarya effectively. Now, the way that you build up energy is through your barriers, so personal barrier and shield ally. Now, her talents also, there's talents that will allow you to generate energy besides these two abilities, but these are the main two abilities. And the talent build that I'm going to suggest doesn't really focus on generating energy because I think that if you should be able to generate energy effectively enough without relying on the talents, and the talents should be able to give you something else aside from pure energy. So one shield you can see generates quite a bit of energy. It's about half her energy. I think it is half, in fact. And so if you do both shields and they both get fully consumed, then they'll both generate. You'll have 100 energy and you'll have 200% damage. So the way that you want to play Zarya, aside from just standing there like a turret, is basically everything relies on your particle grenade for damage and then the shields for protecting yourself and allies. So playing Zarya is pretty simple. Basically just poke, 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 all game, and then when the enemies come close, you stand still and auto attack them. And that's really it to playing Zarya. The skill comes from making sure that you hit your particle grenades and making sure you use your barriers effectively. you can see that the range on particle grenade is very, very large. Uh, this is one of the longest poke abilities in the game, and the fact that it's on such a low cooldown and actually does a really, really high amount of damage is pretty insane. So you'll see that once we have talents into it especially, it becomes even more effective. So let's begin at level 1. So you have Demolitions Expert, Together We Are Strong, Feel the Heat, and Maximum Charge. So Maximum Charge used to be the kind of standard go-to on Zarya, but it's gotten nerfed several times in several different ways. It's not quite as effective as it used to be. Also, players have learned how to generate energy more effectively on Zarya and to keep it up, so this talent isn't really taken anymore. Demolitions Expert is the go-to choice, and that is simply because of how strong it is. So once you stack it up, and it is extremely easy to stack, it reduces the cooldown of Particle Grenade by half. So from 8 seconds to 4 seconds. And this is especially important because it's an ability that stacks charges. So you can have up to 4 charges of Particle Grenade, and you're not always going to be fighting. So the amount of the fact that you can regenerate the amount of charges you have so quickly is very important to kind of skirmishing in general. Uh, so what I'm saying is that cooldown reduction on a charged ability or ability that can hold charges is more important than an ability that doesn't. In addition to that, if that's not already good enough, it also increases the radius by 15%. So very, very, very powerful. And this talent will get nerfed. I don't know when it's going to get nerfed, maybe when Zarya sees more play, but this talent will get nerfed if Zarya ever sees more play in general. In addition to that, you also have Together We Are Strong and Feel the Heat. So Feel the Heat actually is pretty good. Like 50% additional damage to enemies in melee range is a lot. But I think enemies have learned well enough to not stand beside Zarya, and when in team fights, enemies aren't standing beside you and they're running away or they're chasing after your allies, you're not going to be within melee range to benefit from this. You get a lot more damage from Demolitions Expert. Again, I can't overstate how important a 50% reduction in cooldown for a charged ability is. Together we are strong, it helps you generate more energy, but like I said, if you're managing your energy correctly, you shouldn't need this. So the raw output increase in damage from Demolitions Expert is too good to pass up.
I am the
Level 4,
strongest woman
you
in
have
the
I'm the
world.
strongest, give me 20 speed barrier and defensive shielding. All of these abilities are good. You can choose any of them here. It depends on the situation. So give me 20 is the best talent here if you can stack it up. So 20 regen globes is a lot. It's not unheard of. Obviously, there's a lot of talents to require 20 globes, but this is level 4. So this means that you don't collect globes from 1 to level 3. So only once you get level 4 do the globes actually matter. So what that means is finishing this quest takes a little bit longer than normal. And on maps that don't have a lot of globes, or on maps that you aren't going to be getting a lot of globes, so say Cursed Hollow, it still has a lot of globes on that map, but because the lanes are so far apart, you're not going to be getting as many globes as say on Tomb of the Spider Queen, where the lanes are very close and it's easy to go from one lane to another. So I would still take it on a map like Cursed Hollow, but on a map like Battlefield of Eternity, where there's really no regeneration globes at all, I wouldn't take it. However, I would take this on Brax's Holdout as long as you can control the globe generators. I am the strongest is basically a talent that you take if you don't need the other talents. This is a decent talent. It's 307 extra shielding, but you already have, it's not that substantially increased. Note that this will also increase the amount of energy that you generate. Defensive shielding is really good if the enemy team has auto attack heroes, and the reason that it's so good is not just because it gives block to yourself, but it also gives block to your ally shield, your shield ally. And it also only starts the block charges after you shield. So it uses up the full shield and then it gives you block charges. So in this way, it doesn't overlap and kind of damage. Speed barrier is also very good. 35% is a lot, and casting it on an ally will save them quite often. But as I said, give me 20 is way too good to pass up. 300 extra shield. Notice that personal barrier is significantly better than shield ally. So shield ally gets increased by almost like 33%, and it also reduces the cooldown by 3. So you're getting substantially more impact on shield ally if you stack give me 20. Okay, so pinpoint accuracy, explosive barrier to the limit and hit me. So to the limit is bad. It just doesn't do much. Hit me doesn't contribute enough energy, in my opinion, to really mean anything. Explosive Barrier used to be the choice, but now that Demolitions Expert is the go-to level 1 talent, pinpoint accuracy is pretty much necessary here. It's going to, when you have a 50% lower cooldown and your Qs can potentially do 40% more damage, that adds up to a lot more damage and a lot more poke. Especially on a hero that, if you don't have these abilities, has basically no poke. Zarya does not do a lot of poke damage unless you have these two talents, but once you do, the amount of poke that you can output is insane. So I just want to turn on minions here. I just want to show you guys.
Maximum
So
charge.
it's 40% more damage when enemies hit the center of the blast. So you can see here that the center is relatively small, but you only have to tag an enemy
Maximum
here on the
charge.
very, very edge. So you can see Arthas just being tagged on the very, very edge. Oh, he moved. And, okay. And it's still going to count as the crit. So you don't have to get it dead center here for it to land. It's the same with the ability here. So you can see that if you hover over an enemy, it turns green from orange. So even though it's just tagging an enemy here on the very, very edge, I'll actually go to the walls here and disable minions. You can see that here if I hit just building on the very, very edge here, it still
Maximum
counts as hitting the
charge.
structure. So you don't have to like hit it halfway through or anything like that. So this will probably count. Oh, not that. That should count. That counts as a crit. So you don't have to hit dead center. It's easy to
Maximum
hit is what I'm saying.
charge.
Okay, level 10, we have Graviton Surge and Expulsion Zone. So this is the number one incorrect choice that a lot of players make. Most players are going to go
Maximum
Graviton Surge, and what you
charge.
really want to get is Expulsion Zone. And it's not even like, maybe Graviton can be good here. It's pretty much you always go Expulsion Zone. Now, you might say, well, a lot of
Maximum
teams were taking when
charge.
Zarya was picked at BlizzCon, a lot of teams were going Expulsion or going Graviton Surge, and that was because there was a bug with Expulsion Zone, and teams weren't allowed to pick it. Otherwise, they would have gone Expulsion Zone. That's also
Maximum
why I believe
charge.
she saw less play. So Expulsion Zone. So why is it better? Let's first cover why Graviton Surge isn't good. So first of all, it doesn't do any damage. It does
Maximum
literally no
charge.
damage, and all it does is kind of hold heroes. And the other thing that's wrong with it is that any hero that has any kind of mobility can get out of it. So it's not just heroes that have blinks like Zeratul who can blink out. It's heroes like Vala who can just vault out of it. And this makes it significantly weaker. And the cooldown is also significantly longer. It's more than twice as long as Expulsion Zone. So why is Expulsion Zone good? So besides the fact that it does a lot of damage, so it says 272, but remember, that's multiplied by 3 times. So it does 3 times that amount of damage. So it does more damage than your Q, and and you can cast at the same time. It's an extra damage ability, does a big AoE. So not only does it do a ton of damage, it also creates an expulsion zone, which can be used for a variety of things. So if a hero is trying to walk through the gate, you can very, very often just cast it like this, and you will interrupt enemies from
Maximum
going back to
charge.
their base. So as they're trying to walk through the gates, you cast it, and now they can't get through the gates, and you can get an easy kill. You can also block a lot of chokes, obviously. You can split their team up.
Maximum
But
charge.
even more impactful than that, at least arguably, is the fact that you can prevent enemy teams from capping a boss camp, or you can steal boss camps, or you can steal camps, or you can steal objectives. And that is very important and often underlooked. The extra, the other thing to note is that you can see that it pulses, and every time it pulses, it interrupts heroes that are moving through it. So if Myrden's jumping over it and it pulses while he's jumping, it'll stop his jump. Now, this also works in the same way that it's pushing heroes back. It's not blocking the area like Tyrell's Holy Ground. So Tyrell's Holy Ground physically creates a physical barrier, whereas this just pushes you out of it. So what this means is that any hero that's unstoppable, like Johanna when she pops her D, can walk right through Expulsion Zone. That's just something to keep in mind. Now, level 13. This is another area where people might be taking the wrong talent. So, Unstoppable Competitor, Spell Bearer, Endurance Training, and Pain is Temporary. Admittedly, they're all pretty good, but Pain is Temporary is way too powerful to take anything else here. I'd expect this talent to actually get nerfed as well. So Pain is Temporary, uh, basically gives you another shield. So you have personal barrier, shield ally, and then pain is temporary. And pain is temporary. Um, you gain a shield that absorbs 0.5% of Zarya's max health per energy consumed. So if you have 100 energy, you're going to get a 50% health shield, and that's every 30 seconds. And the more important part of this is a shield like personal barrier and shield ally. So you actually, if enemies damage the shield, you gain energy. So what's going to happen is you're going to pop personal barrier, it's going to get blown up, and they're going to try and burst you, and you pop pain is temporary, and then they try and burst through that shield, and then you have all of your energy back. So you don't, it says that you consume energy to gain a shield, but you gain it almost immediately back. Compare this to endurance training, where you have to have 75 or above energy, and then you take 20% reduced damage, or personal barrier, which is basically spell shield, or unstoppable. I think that pain is temporary is just way too good. I would expect this cooldown to be increased by maybe 15 seconds or even doubled. So this is just too good to give up. Even if they have burst, even if they have any kind of spell damage that you might think that spell barrier might be better, as long as you don't get bursted before you can pop pain is temporary, which you should never, because that should never happen, because you just pop personal barrier and then you can pop pain is temporary right after. As long as you don't get bursted, you're going to win the fight after, because they're using all of their ability to try and kill you. And when you pop all these shields that basically double your health and they don't kill you, they've used all their abilities and you can just turn on them, especially with Zarya, who has really sustained damage. Level 16, it's Gain Train. You're going to want to take this pretty much every time. Not only does it give you a second shield on Shield Ally, and this also works with Give Me 20 at level 4, but it also allows you to generate energy much more easily and much more efficiently. So there's other options here: Cleansing Shield, Plasma Shock, Born in Battle. Born in Battle just reduces your cooldowns. Cleansing Shield could be good if they have a lot of CC and you don't have cleanse in your team for whatever reason. Plasma Barrier isn't very good. The slow isn't good enough to ignore what Gain Train gives you. So Gain Train is just too good. You're basically, now that you can shield yourself and you can shield an ally and you can shield an extra ally, you're shielding 3/5 of your team on a very low cooldown. The shield lasts 3 seconds, and once you finish Give Me 20, it has a cooldown of 9 seconds. So you're constantly shielding your team, and it's going to make it even that much more difficult for the enemy team to kill you, and it's going to give you significantly more energy. This is actually a fairly big power spike for Zarya. I mean, every tier for Zarya is very important, but 16 is especially good. Level 20, everything's underwhelming here. This is just, you get some more max energy, increases the radius, blah, 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 blah. Grenadier seems really good in theory, but honestly, the cooldown reduction from level 1 Demolitions Expert gives you so many particle grenades, you can almost not even use them anyway. So Unyielding Defender is really the only answer here, and this gives you just more shields. So now, say an enemy goes to kill you, you pop Personal Barrier, and then you pop Pain is Temporary, and then you pop Unyielding Defender, and then you pop Personal Barrier again. Or what could happen is you pop Personal Barrier, you pop Pain is Temporary, and then your shield is already up for Personal Barrier again, and you pop that, and it goes back and forth. And also, it also resets the cooldown of your shield ally. So since you're giving your allies, since you have Gain Train and you can shield your allies, you're shielding a total of 4 allies. So you're going to have an overwhelming amount of shields and an overwhelming amount of damage with this build. One other thing I want to say is, so when you're going to burst a target, you can obviously Expulsion Zone and Particle Grenade do a lot of damage. So you want to you can burst targets by hitting them at the same time. So what you don't want to do is cast. You don't want to cast your Q first and then your R. So if you see that there's a little bit of a cast time on Expulsion Zone, so if I go to if I left click, if I press Q here, and then I smash R as hard as I can to cast immediately after, you can see there's a bit of a delay here. But if I cast the R first, the Expulsion Zone first, and then I immediately cast Particle Grenade, they actually hitting at the same time. It's hard to see because they're inside of each other, but if we look at the damage here, so if I do QR, you can see that both hit. It's about 1485. And now, if I hit RQ, they'll both hit again. I actually messed it up there. Actually, I didn't mess it up. So it's just hard to see. So they're both actually hitting there. The R and the Q are both hitting. So all I'm saying is, if you want to burst a hero down, cast Expulsion Zone, and then cast Pellicle Grenade to get a little bit more efficiency off of that.
Maximum charge.
So as I said, Zarya is a weird hero. She has poke, she has all kinds of stuff, she has shields, and she's tanky. And I'm not really sure. She doesn't fit in one type of
Maximum
comp. She
charge.
fits in anything, but she definitely is better in comps that accentuate kind of one kind of hyper carry on the team. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, I'll talk to you later.